Okay, welcome back everyone for session 3 of our Let's Talk Wellness series. Today we're going to talk about how to beat distraction, what it is, and we'll just kind of reflect on that and what it means to us and how we're distracted and what we can do to kind of combat that distraction. So next. Okay, so oftentimes we're so out of focus, there's a lot of distractions around us and they're piling up. So this is an example of a modern workplace. So you can see that oftentimes we're in close proximity to someone else and they're busy and they're doing their work and you can hear a lot of different things and it can be easily distracted. And I think this lady here in the middle, she has, I think, a BlackBerry, which I don't know if any of us use BlackBerries anymore. There's, computer screen, there's paperwork, there's our cell phones, there's just so many different tabs open on our computer and there's a lot going on. And so we're just going to kind of talk about this kind of regular technology and distraction that's happening, not only in the workplace, but at home. If our workplace is now at home, just driving, everything and anywhere. But this will just be kind of the example. So did you know that the average times that we change our windows on our computer is 37 times an hour? Just kind of think about that. And I know I go from one window to another and I'm kind of all over the place. And so and that's just an average of I think maybe sometimes I do a lot more than 37 times an hour, but that's a lot for awareness, and it's a lot of attention going from place to place. So the next one is between human factors, digital distraction, there's typically 3 minutes of consistent focus before another interruption occurs. So oftentimes we can focus for 3 minutes at a time and then something happens. If I know when I have to have my sound up on my computer, and so if I get an email, it'll ding. And of course, if I'm busy working on something, that'll distract me, of course. To then, instead of really focusing on the project I'm doing, I will go and check out this email, even if sometimes I shouldn't or don't have to. Nothing's really pressing, but we're just kind of so almost programmed to hear those dings and to respond right away, like we have to respond. And so oftentimes we only get 3 minutes of focus. And then what happens is it can take up to 23 minutes to regain focus on that project that you were working on. And that's a long time. And I completely believe this because oftentimes I'll be distracted by that email and then something else will come up and something else will come up. And I'm like, what was I working on? Oh yeah, this project that needs more of my attention than ever. And oftentimes we can hear this in other ways, like, for example, if you are doing, let's say you're doing laundry and then at home, and then you're trying to find something, so then you walk away to get something else and something else distracts you, and all of a sudden you've done 4 other things and then laundry hasn't gotten done when that was your ultimate focus. And we've seen all those kind of jokes around that. And so then we look at like productivity, and oftentimes businesses may lose $10,000 plus per employee due to distraction, and because we're not very productive. And so does that mean that you need to be on task all day long and just so focused that you're just not even taking a break or anything? No, that's not what we mean. And I'll discuss that later. So I'm talking about the 3 minutes of consistent focus and then being distracted and then taking that 23 minutes to regain that focus, when oftentimes you really do want to regain that focus and go back to that project and really work on it. Okay, so it doesn't really need to be this way. Once we kind of go over some tips and what we're looking at, we can kind of make some goals for ourselves. All right, so why does this matter? And really it does. And I mean, what do you want out of your day? What do you want out of your work day? What do you want out of your private life? What's happening? What's going on? So it takes a lot of awareness and a lot of reflection on that awareness. So distractions prevent you from getting your work done, and so much more than than what you wish it would be. So oftentimes distraction is less productivity, and then that leads to stress, right? We're stressed out because, oh my gosh, at the end of the day I didn't get anything done, or at least some of those things done. So we end up unhappy, we end up unhealthy, we end up just more stressed, and that the cycle continues. So today, we're going to identify some distractors. We're going to learn some tips and exercise to subdue distractions and increase your productivity. And then we'll kind of go through some plans that you can take to kind of address your own needs to figure out kind of what that next step is. All right, so the first thing is to identify those distractors. And you can kind of think about that and reflect on it right now in your normal day. What are your distractors? If you're working at work, if you're working from your office, your classroom, you're at home, kind of think about that. And oftentimes I turn off my phone when I'm working from home, because if I was working at work, I wouldn't pick up my phone anyway. So there's no reason for it to be ringing out loud, because I wouldn't hear it normally anyway. I turn off my phone oftentimes, um, well, just so I'm not hearing if there's a family text and everyone's texting all day, I can deal with that later type of thing. So kind of thinking, what are those distractors when you are really focused on any type of work, housework, work at work, whatever that work is, whatever that environment is, what are those distractors? And we can even look at driving. What are those distractions when you're driving? So many different things. So that's why I'm so happy that it's hands-free cell phone. But I'm driving with my kids down the road, and it's can be really scary because all sometimes you see is a person's the top of their head, because they're looking down at their phone and they're kind of weaving in and out between the lines. And every single time I see that, I point and I'm like, well, check this out, boys. Like, this is so scary. And it can be. And, the longer you spend on the road, the more you see different things. See people shaving or doing their nails or eating. Can be so very scary. So uh, we cannot do two things at once. Our brain cannot do two things at once. We have partial continuous attention. So our brain can only focus on this, and then it moves to something else. And you can try it. You can try to read a book while you're watching television. You're not focused on either, or you're focused on one, you're going to miss what's on TV. You're focused on the TV, you can't read. So our brain cannot focus on two things at one time. So think about those distractors. And then we really want to look at the epidemic of overwhelm. So there is just so much going on, so many different noises, so many different things. We have stressors here, we have this and that. We are really, really overwhelmed. And so how do we put those kind, loving boundaries in place that we know work for us, and that we know that we feel strongly about, so that we can state those boundaries out loud and in a way that other people will respect, so that you can get your work done more productively, things like that. And then what if it's people? What if people are coworkers, your family members? What if they're distractors? And what does that mean to you? And how can you help with that? I know I do a lot of these presentations from home. And so I let my boys, I have 3 boys, I let them know from this time to this time, you cannot leave your rooms. You need to go into your room and not make a sound. And every once in a while, they're really good at that. I don't even realize that they're home, but every once in a while they'll kind of sneak by to grab a little snack or something, but that's very few and far between, because they know how important it is to be very quiet during these meetings. And then the last one is self-distraction. So we'll kind of talk about that too. Do you distract yourself easy? Okay, so first let's identify some work environment things. So we're looking at the noises, and we're looking at what's around you. Is it people? Is it machines? Here's a copy machine, and and those things can be really, really noisy. And what are the other things that are really noisy as it relates to machines around you? Um, I really like to listen to Tibetan singing bowls or bells. That really helps me focus on my work. And the research shows that it does change your brain chemistry, so you're able to focus. And so I live in Cubeland when I'm at work, and I was playing that one day, like all day, really, really low on my computer. And so I didn't realize everyone could hear it every once in a while. And finally, this lady said, "What is that noise? I hear like a church bell every once in a while. It's kind of distracting." I was like, "Oh," I felt so bad. So I just quickly turned it off. And we're in Cubeland, so nobody knew it was me. But uh, so what helps one person might not help another. And I know some people like to listen to music just to have that in the background while they're working. But kind of being aware of not only what helps you and what doesn't help you, and vice versa for the people around you. So the work environment, and then at home, is everything, if you're working from home, set up so it is the best environment for you, uh, both organizational, kind of lighting, uh, kind of away from the laundry and the dishes and all of that thing. Can you kind of put yourself in a little cove where it's like you walk in there and it's work time type of thing. Let's see if I can go to the next one. Yeah. All right. So here's some tips to counterbalance those distractions. So we want to reduce the noise, office noise, as much as possible. That's very important, not only for you, but for others. And we're kind of thinking in terms of just what helps you and what doesn't. And then even the ergonomic training, have any of you ever had that done as it relates to posture and how you're sitting by your computer if you're doing computer work? Have any of you had that done? No. So it's very, very important, because it can really help your whole body not get injured, and you can be more productive and more awake. And so basically what it is to sit with your feet flat on the floor. And if your feet don't touch the floor, it's good to have your feet on something, so that they're not just hanging. And then when your shoulders are up, back, and down, with good posture, and then your hands are at a certain distance away from your computer, and even if you're typing, that you're not over crunched or over curled, so that you have nice posture, and then also your wrists are in a nice formation, so you don't get carpal tunnel and all of that good stuff. And I know that some businesses, like For Line Health at the hospital, we'll have some of our physical therapists come around, and we can actually call in a ticket and ask for somebody to come over and kind of assess our workspace. But it's really good. You can just Google ergonomic training for your workspace and kind of see all those tips. But it does make a big difference, so that by the end of the day, you're not so sore because you've been looking down at your screen all day, or punched over, and now your shoulders are so tight. So it's just a good thing. Once if our body pain is distracting, that's just one way to kind of think about it. By Googling ergonomic training and seeing what you can do. Use a desk lamp, can also be really good, so you have good lighting, but it also can kind of close in your space so it's your workspace. So desk lamps are, the research shows that that can kind of help you just be in that moment at work. Um, and then if you're working from home like a lot of us are, just really be honest with your distractions. And so I've been working from home lately, and it's so easy to say, oh, I can get all this housework done when I'm at home, when I usually do that at night or weekends. And so I made it a goal right away at the beginning that I'm not going to be doing laundry during my work day. That can wait until the end of the day, or on a weekend, or or I'll have my boys do it, or my husband, or just so I'm not distracted by folding laundry, because my work time is my work time. So just really being honest about what is distracting you at home. And then just organizing your desk on a weekly basis. So definitely keeping that area as clean as you need it to be. So cleaned for some people might not mean just it's empty. So just organize in the best, in your way. So you can keep everything that you want, but still be organized. So that you can find things, and some people might say that having all these papers around might be disorganized, but for you it might be just what you need to stay organized. So everyone is really different, but keeping it organized so it works for you is the ultimate goal. And then, so we kind of talked about this epidemic of overwhelm, and it's so true with all this technology and text messages, buzzing, or that sound, or the telephone ringing, or uh, emails, the sound that comes with emails, and just all of this different technology that we have around us. So we tend to be very, very overwhelmed, but then we're also looking at other things, like other stressors that overwhelm. And we're really going to talk about that, because it's important to not only know what's stressing you out, knowing that it's distracting you, but then really reflect on it and come to a place where you can set it aside and then keep working. So we'll talk about that. All right. So tips to counteract that epidemic of overwhelmed is just really limit those interruptions of technology. Um, Personal phone calls, emails that come, even work time phone calls and emails. So if you're really working on a project and you can't take a phone call because you really want to finish this, I mean, every workplace is different. Or if you want to turn off your emails for a while. And I've been telling my coworkers that, go ahead and email me. I might not get to you because I need to be working on this specific presentation, and I want to finish it before I do anything else. And they're very understanding about that. And then the social media time. I know there was a time where um, even at my work for a line of health, I could not, they did not want us even going on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or anything. Well, now they want us to go on social media. They want us to, share different things with the hospital, and different stories and things like that. So it's kind of an interesting transition between no phone time to yes, pick it up and start sharing things. And but even though it's okay, you still have to look at it like, is that very distracting for you? And research shows that oftentimes what happens when we pick up the phone to do something specific, like make a phone call or text someone, or get an email out, oftentimes the first thing people do is they don't even realize it, like subconsciously they go right to their social media. And then all of a sudden they're like, how did I get here? Why am I here? I was going to make a phone call, or I was going to text someone. So just being aware of that, like how do you use your social media apps? So oftentimes what I'll do is I recommend that you change where your social media apps are on your phone, like hide them in a few different screens, and then keep doing that so that it becomes so automatic to find something and you don't even think about it. It's like, doot, 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 oh, there it is. Change it around. So then when you're like, what am I looking for? Oh, why was I going there? I shouldn't be. So it's a good idea to change things around, because we are creatures of habit and we tend to just not even think about it and subconsciously do things. The next one is to identify best communication and email practices. Um, is it better to just quickly go and talk to someone, or does that take longer? Because I know if I go into the office and my office is in the basement, kind of away from the hospital. And so sometimes if I really need to get stuff done, I don't even go up to the hospital, because if I start walking around, maybe I need to go to the heart center for something or talk to somebody there. It's on the other end. Well, I end up, 4 or 5 people end up stopping me and talking to me. And then that's a 20-minute conversation, 20-minute conversation, 20-minute conversation. And I love it. And that is great. And I wish I could do that more. But when I have a project to do, I oftentimes don't have 2 hours to talk to people. And so sometimes it might be just better if I just email the heart center type of thing. So just kind of identifying what will work for you in this moment and what won't. Will it be easier to call someone because the email might be confusing and then you're going to go through back and forth email, or just pick up the phone and call someone, because then that communication will be clearer. Um, Another one is to ban devices in meetings. And even, when I do presentations, oftentimes, people will be on their phone, and that's their prerogative, and if that's what they need to be doing or wanting to be doing. But I know that oftentimes we will ban devices in meetings, because it can, if somebody's talking and somebody's looking at their phone, that, that can be really hard for the person that's talking. So the next one is prioritizing the things that need to be done today, the things that you want to get done. Just like, here's my list of things that I need to get done. Here's the most important, 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever it is. And then know that you have this list. What you didn't get done today, you can start on it tomorrow. And oftentimes what I like to do is pick that low-hanging fruit, things that only take maybe a minute or 2 or 3 minutes, and just, get those done right away. They're off your list. You can, it kind of feels good to cross those off, and then you're done. So, and then limit the number of projects that you have. You don't have to finish everything today. There's always tomorrow. You have that list. You can always come back to it. So I know oftentimes people have this list and they'll get overwhelmed and prioritize the things that really need to get done, and say, all I can do is what I can do today, and then I'll start back up tomorrow. So it's good to kind of limit those projects so you're not so overwhelmed. Okay. The next distractor was the coworkers, supervisors, family members, students. This can be hard as a educator and in the school, but just being very, not only for yourself, but for other people. Like, what does this mean? Really reflecting on how do you distract people, and how do other people distract you? And so we're going to talk about that. So how can we counteract this? Some teachers and school personnel will have office hours for walk-ins. I know that it's so different now, but we've emailed like one of my kids' teachers at like 7 o'clock at night, not expecting to get an email back. And I think because they're so used to working from home, they will email back right away. And, I feel so bad because we weren't expecting an email. We were like, this can wait till tomorrow, but they're working on homework and they had a question. So we wanted to get that out right away. But I would rather have the teachers, email at a different time. But however, it might just be easier for them to check their email every couple hours, even at night, because I know kids, they can't get their questions answered all the time in class. So, but it is good to kind of limit those hours. And that doesn't mean, like I had just said, I'm not going to go on my computer at all tonight. If what I do recommend is to say, okay, from 8 to 8:45, that's my computer time, when I'm going to follow up with emails, when I'm going to do this or that, so that you're not feeling so stressed about, oh, I'm going to have so much work tomorrow. But it's a good idea to limit that time. And then it's also a good time to have that quiet time. Like I'd mentioned before, I'll turn off my work email, so I can get my project that I'm working on done, and I'm not going to be distracted. And it's okay to do that. If you're around a lot of noise, it's good to wear headphones, even noise canceling headphones if you can, if you don't need to be interrupted. Like sometimes we know that I'm going to be interrupted, and that's okay. But if you don't need to be interrupted, and there's some noise that you don't want to hear, it's okay to wear headphones. And then I have that plus dash. And what that is if you're working on a project and you're around some coworkers and you really want to get this project done, and somebody comes up to you and starts to kind of jabber away about something that isn't related to work, and they just kind of want to talk about their weekend, or whatever it is, that plus dash means to say two things, kind of as they're talking, maybe say two things and say, I'd really love to catch up more. I just had this deadline that I need to meet. So let's talk a little bit later. I'll come find you, or something like that. So two positives, and then that dash is how are you going to let them know that you need to go, or that you need to get back to your project. And then keeping your supervisor up to date on your progress. So this doesn't even have to be like your boss or your supervisor. Your supervisor can be yourself too. So when you're thinking about, what am I doing? How am I progressing? What do I need to do? You're kind of just keeping yourself up to date, and reflecting on that, and saying, okay, do I have a list? How are things going? And we'll kind of talk about that in a moment. So setting up some meetings, but not too many. I know this is probably impossible when you have some kids that are having some, want to meet with you. This can be a lot of different things when we're looking at even setting up appointments for doctor's appointments and dentists, and all of those things, to make sure you kind of space those out so your week isn't so overwhelming with this and that and that. And then do that self-assessment. So do you contribute or encourage distraction culture around you, not only at home, but at work, and or at home time and work time? So just doing that self-assessment is so very important to see how you're doing. All right. So I remember in college, I had a teacher that looked over the sea of the students that were sitting there, and I was one of them. And he said, I don't think anyone is really paying attention to me right now. I would love to see the thought bubbles that are in your head, and what you guys are thinking about right now. If I could see those thought bubbles, I think that would help. And he goes, well, on the other hand, I don't want to know what you guys are thinking, because 47% of the time our minds are lost in thought, right? Our minds are thought generators. They're meant to think. So kind of thinking in terms of how can we, as human, and we all have minds, how can we use our thoughts as an advantage? So we're going to kind of talk a little bit about that. So almost half the time our minds are lost in thought. Is it a thought that what we're doing, or is it another thought that maybe worrying, or thinking about something in the past, or thinking about something in the future? Where are our thoughts? So that's almost half the time. So of all the things I've lost, I miss my mind the most. So that's just supposed to be a little funny. And so are we, yeah, where is our mind? And can we, if our thoughts are lost somewhere else, like either in the past or future or on something else, how can we get our mind back to really focusing? All right. So the next one was identify for those distraction was you. Are you self-distracting? And remembering your brain's wiring. Our brains are thought generators. We're meant to think. We're meant to feel. We're meant to have emotions. We're meant to be human. And so remembering what your body needs and what your brain needs. So oftentimes we can get so lost in a thought that we're not even focused on the project, and can be really hard to rein ourselves back in, especially if we're really stressed out. And we're going to talk about that. Are you bored? Are you bored with what you're doing? It is easier to get back into kind of the rhythm of things when we are really enjoying what we're doing and it's part of our passion. So, um, but that it's also a good thing to think about is what you're doing kind of boring. And then we're going to check your energy level. So, and I'm going to teach you 7 non-techie ways to boost your energy level. Or are you distracted by something else? So these are some good check-in things for you. So we'll kind of go through all these. All right. So your brain's wiring. Like I just mentioned, thoughts will automatically prioritize towards stressors. And so let's say something really stressful happened last night or the day before, and it really kind of shook you to the core and stressed you out. How easy is it to work the next day? Right? It can sometimes be hard. How easy is it to sleep? Your mind is ruminating about this, and it's hard to sleep. So oftentimes our thoughts will prioritize those stressors. And there's a reason for that. Problems and ongoing issues will distract and take that attention because your brain is trying to figure it out. Your brain is trying to come up with a solution, or your brain is trying to um, deal with the trauma, or your brain is trying to figure it out. So what we want to do, if this happens, if something stresses you out to the point where I don't know what to do, I don't know where to go, and I don't have a solution for it, you just really, especially if it's kind of taking over your day and it keeps coming in, like that thought keeps coming in and it keeps kind of stressing you out, you want to just stop what you're doing if you can, or on your next break. And you just want to reflect on that stressor, reflect on that first, because as it's coming in and as it keeps coming in, your brain needs it. Your brain needs to figure it out. So what the most important thing is to get a pencil, a pen, a piece of paper, and just get all those details down. What happened and how it made you feel, and just get all those details down, because resiliency writing is so very, very powerful. Pen to paper, research shows that if you can get all that stress out and everything that's keeping you up or distracting you, then your brain will go, oh, all those details are right there. I can come back to it anytime I want. And it's so amazing, because it's so true. It's like it's right there. You can set it aside, and then you can go about your day. So very powerful. I recommend, if you do this, to go back to that writing in a couple of days and start writing again, because oftentimes, because you've been able to get it out of your mind, and all of that, all of those words and all of those details aren't swarming around in your brain anymore. Your brain will have time to figure it out. And then when you rewrite, you might come up with solutions like, oh, and things that you wouldn't have been able to think about had you not written it down. So resiliency writing is so very powerful. Or, talk to someone, get it out. Oftentimes when we talk, when we say these words out loud, you can get, you can get some good feedback, or maybe some solutions, or just talking it out and getting it out of the brain is very powerful. So that is your brain's wiring. Or, tips to counterbalance that is do nothing, like absolutely nothing. Sometimes, like I had mentioned, for that reflection, sometimes your brain just needs to kind of almost do a reset. Like we talked about before with mindfulness and meditation, we just need to focus on our breath. We just need to breathe. So when we take a deep breath in, we might say the words I am, and then as we exhale, say the word calm or whatever you need to hear. I am strong. Um, you know, anything you need, and keep doing that. Or you can do the counting thing. So you count in for 3 as you breathe in, and as you exhale, you count out for 4 or 6, depending on what you need. And we know that by practicing mindfulness, it can rewire our brain and then help us react to stressors differently. So that's just another way to counterbalance that our brain's chemistry and that stress and those thoughts that can be distracting. Okay, so remember I was talking about, are you bored? Well, here's kind of a chart that was created to kind of think about that. So if you are at a challenge level that's really low, and your skill level for doing something particular is really low, you can see that you're kind of have that apathy. And then if that skill level is, kind of in the medium, but the challenge level is low, you can be bored. It's pretty boring. If you're at a skill level that's really high and the challenge level is low, that's where the relaxation comes into place. And then on the flip side, as you can see, if your skill level is low and the challenge is kind of in the middle, that's where you're kind of worry. And then if your skill level is low and the challenge level is really high, that's where the anxiety comes in. And then you can see as the challenge level goes up, but your skill level goes up at the same time, you find that arousal, flow, and control. And so that flow right there is where, if you want to reflect on that right now, have you ever been doing something that have a high skill level and your challenge level is high, and nothing is distracting you. You could work on it and the phone could ring. Somebody could be talking nearby. There could be music playing and you do not hear any of it because you are so in the flow and you are so focused and not distracted at all. So this is kind of something to think about as it relates to what you're doing at the time, what's happening with this project or whatever you're doing. What's your skill level? Kind of reflect on that. What's the challenge level? And reflect on that as well. So, and just notice those times when you are in the flow, when you're not distracted at all. And I'll get this at work where somebody's on the telephone and they're kind of dealing with a really tough patient, and their voice is kind of going up and down, and they might be getting frustrated, and they'll get off the phone and they'll be, I'm so sorry, and they'll be talking to me, I'm so sorry, that was a horrible phone call, and I won't even hear them at all, and then they'll say my name. I'm like, wait, what happened? Oh, I'm so sorry, that phone call. I'm like, I didn't even hear it. I was so focused on what I was doing. So that's kind of where we want to be. We want to be in a place that whatever we're doing, we kind of get into that flow. We are highly skilled, and the challenge level is that where we can be in the flow. So that's just something to reflect upon as it relates to that boredom. It's easy to be very distracted when we're bored. Okay, and then tips to counteract is just seek opportunities that move you away from boredom to kind of, get that skill level up and that challenge level up. Dig in, just say, all right, you know what? These projects need to be finished. They're weighing on me. I'm just going to set a timer and I'm going to take the next 15 minutes and just dig in and just see how much I can get done. That's another way to up that. And then redefine a business or creative skill. Like what are your passions? What do you really like to do? Kind of get back into that. Whenever we're able to kind of increase our skill level and do something that we haven't been doing for a long time, but we like, um, then we're rewiring the brain so much so that it'll help us in other areas of projects. Oh my gosh, take a trip, weekend trip, vacation, just kind of getting away from everything for a couple hours or a day or 2 days can be very, very powerful. And then also engaging in complementary activities. Like if you need to read a report or read something, sometimes that can just be like so overwhelming when you have to get into it. So kind of put that aside and then read. So a complementary activity to that would be to read your favorite book for a couple of pages, just because it's kind of the same thing, but that helps rewire the brain to kind of really be able to focus on the report that you have to read. And so that was just an example. Another one is just to kind of change your perspective on it, on on whatever you're working on or need to work on if you're being really distracted. And so that can be kind of a hard thing to do, but maybe even being grateful for the project or being able to do that. I know a lot of times can give you an example where some people will say, oh, I have all this laundry to do. My kids go through so much laundry. And then they take the perspective of, well, I'm glad my kids aren't old enough to be out of the house because then I won't have any clothes to wash. And so kind of changing your perspective in that and kind of appreciating that project for what it is in the moment. Okay, so 7 non-techie ways to boost productivity. The first one has to do with your energy level, with your brain and getting the nutrients in, and that's balance your breakfast with protein. So kind of finding your age level, how many grams of protein do you need each day? Divide that by 3. How much do you need to eat for breakfast? So, eggs and yogurt and things like that with a lot of good protein. There's um, pumpkin seeds and chia seeds, hemp seeds, all kinds of different foods. So you can even Google, really good breakfast, high protein breakfast foods, making sure that you're getting a lot of protein for your brain and that energy throughout the morning. The next one is to avoid carbs at lunch, because what will happen is, if you eat kind of a high carb lunch, your blood sugar will shoot up and then you'll crash and then you'll get that mid-afternoon, I need to eat, where's the chocolate, where's a candy bar, I'll just eat anything. So making sure you're getting a lot of veggies and kind of staying away from the carby food. The next one is exercise, getting up and moving, so very important, especially if you're having a hard time focusing. We know, and we've done this study with college students, if they can study and really focus on their, like let's say they have a test tomorrow and they're in the library, if they can study for 10 minutes, just really focused, and then go for a 2-3 minute walk or go to the bathroom and then come back and 10 more minutes and then get up and go, they will learn more than if they just sit and study for an hour and not move. So getting up and move, changing your scenery a little bit, and your brain functions better. Getting enough sleep. Sleep is medicine. Sleep is so important. Sleep is so important for our brain, and not only that, but then we'll be less tired, of course. And the more tired we are, the easier it is to be distracted. So getting enough sleep. Water, dehydration is really tough on the brain, really tough on the body. So making sure that you're getting plenty of water, kind of, shooting for at least 3 16-ounce glasses of water a day, but, getting more as you can. I recommend starting your morning as soon as you wake up, drinking 8 to 16 ounces of water upon awakening. If you don't already, that's our bodies wake up already dehydrated. So if you start with coffee, that's a diuretic, then we get more dehydrated. So drink at least 8 to 16 ounces of water upon awakening. And then another one is admit when you're procrastinating. So Sometimes it's easy to procrastinate. Some people think like, oh, I can get so much more work done in the last few minutes. So just something to think about. I'll find a picture for that later. So totally procrastinated on this one. Um, so just admit it. Admit when you're doing it. It's um, being aware of what you're doing is so very powerful. It can help you make some little changes. Another one is to review calendar appointments and deadlines and set goals on a regular basis. Oftentimes, like I kind of will shy away from looking at the hockey and track schedule, my work schedule, um, and until like the last minute. And then I'm like, oh man, why didn't I do this earlier? But um, review your appointments and deadlines and set goals on a regular basis. So like, what are you going to do today? What are you going to do for this week and for the month? And then maybe going even out 3 months. That can be very, very powerful on less worry for your brain to say, I don't know what's going on. You can feel more empowered because you do know what's going on. And then some other things, how can we, like I had mentioned, this kind of a little bit of a summary is to be aware of what's working for you, aware of what's not. That's awareness when we're distracted, awareness when we're stressed, awareness what we need in the moment. It all starts with awareness. The next one is that balance. So to restore focus, set up those break times, do something completely different. So we need some balance in our day. We can't, remember when I had mentioned that, that productivity at the beginning, like every 3 minutes, we are distracted and it takes us 23 minutes to get back. It's okay to take those breaks when we're working on something for 20 minutes or 10 minutes. It's okay to walk away from it. You will actually be more productive in that next 10 to 20 minutes if you're not trying to force yourself to get everything done. Very powerful. And then assess what works and what doesn't for you. Because once we assess and once we become aware and once we're kind of reflecting on it, then we can say, oh my gosh, this does not work for me, or yeah, that really worked for me. Then you can always take action to make some small changes. Okay, so any questions or comments or maybe some aha moments?
I know for me, Stacy, the one thing